Welcome back to the Cloud County Ground as we bring you the Essex Vitality Blast preview show. Doesn't seem long ago since Old Trafford, does it? But here's hoping that the Eagles can produce bigger and better things for this year's campaign. Now, the T20 will be here very, very shortly. Gloucestershire, the visitors on Tuesday. Here's hoping they don't bring their usual rain machine with them. Tickets are still available, I'm told. So log on to the website essexcricket.org.uk and make sure you're here on Tuesday evening. It's a 6 o'clock start. Now, I've done lots of chats with lots of the players for this show. We're going to start, though, of course, with the skipper. Here's my chat with Simon Harmer. Simon, thank you for joining us to set up this new Vitality Blast season. Before we go forward, let's go back. Your reflections on 2022 and what the Eagles managed to achieve.
Yeah, I think first impressions are, the first memories of last season was disappointing to lose the quarter-final at Old Trafford against Lancs. I think we had come a long way as a team and we just sort of fell short in that last game, but I think incredibly proud of the brand of cricket that we ended up playing in that tournament. We want to try and play a fearless brand of cricket. We understand that there's going to be days where we come short and get bowled out for 80, but I think more often than not we were scoring north of 200, which is exactly the type of cricket that we want to be playing, and with our batting lineup and I think the way that certain players played last season, it allowed us to do that. So very happy with how we progressed, but I think a little bit disappointing not to make finals day, but hopefully we can build on that going into this season.
Well, lifting the bar is always a key thing, and I think you mentioned that batting lineup. When you look at Michael Pepper, Paul Walter, the leading run scorers for the Eagles in this competition last season, the confidence that they have must be able to instill a lot more confidence in the way that you can captain the side, right?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of opportunity for them last season. They had shown a lot of potential, but it was, I think, them repaying their talents, if I can put it like that. Yeah. I think they really did. We missed Critch when he got injured. He was massive for us last season, and speaking about that fearless brand of cricket, the way that Peps came in against some of the best T20 players in the world. From memory, I think he had the highest strike rate against spin in the Vitality Blast. Somebody might have overtaken him in the knockout stages, but in the group stages, Riley Rousseau had an unbelievable tournament for Somerset, but I think Peps was up there with the best strikers in the tournament. So extremely happy for him. And I think it showed him sort of his winter and the 100 as well, getting those opportunities. And Paulie as well. I think he's always sort of been on the fringes and threatened to make an impact, but he really came through last season. So incredibly happy with the younger guys and guys that haven't had that much opportunity to sort of come in and play the way that they did.
You talk about rolling the dice, and do you feel now in your captaincy you have more willingness to roll the dice, to take the risks? Because risk and reward, we know, it can be a very fine line, but in your head, do you captain any different now to when you first took on this role?
I think I can give a lot more responsibility to the players now. I think they've shown that they can take that on board and look after themselves in a way. So it does take a bit of weight off my shoulders to be able to not have to speak game plans or have long team chats about how we're going to go about our business. I think guys are pretty settled. They know how they're going to go about their business, and I think as a captain that helps a lot. So yeah, I think T20 is such a fluid game. It's constantly changing on the field. You need to try and make the best possible decisions on the field at that given time. And I think when guys are playing in a certain way, not so much with the batting, because I think that sort of takes care of itself.
Yeah, sure.
Especially with the bowling, having the options, knowing guys that are ready to go, poorly bowling again and doing nicely, and having guys like Critch and Aaron Nidja up your sleeve. Sam Cook's done extremely well in the white ball format over the last few years, so I think as a captain it gives you a lot of freedom to make certain decisions and gamble a little bit at certain stages of games, because you know that you can really rely on these guys and they can pull through and do the job for you.
And the options that you speak of, I mean, we can see them in the batting, even more so the balance in the bowling attack now. You mentioned, Paul, you got Daniel Sams, of course, 2 left armers, Aaron Nidja, a left arm spinner, yourself. There seems to be a lot more variety that you can call on, and therefore to be able to manipulate your game plan on whatever's in front of you is critical for a top class captain as you are.
Yeah, I think having the options like that to cover all the bases. I think T20s is now, it's so much about the statistics, about matchups, about how...
Do you find that? That's interesting. You work matchups. I mean, I'm big into baseball and that's all about matchups, but I haven't heard it specifically on T20s. But do you do that?
Yeah, I think the game's evolved and it's become all about sort of the stats, how certain players play against certain types of bowling. So when you're in a situation and a batter's maybe just come to the wicket, you know what he struggles against, or if he's got off to a start, right, you know what you can turn to, and having all the different options, the left arm seamers, Daniel Sams and Paul Walter, like you mentioned, having Nidge, having Critch to bowl leg spin. Tom Wesley did a job for us last season, a beautiful job for us here, when there were 2 left-handers batting. And then you can still draw on the experience of guys like Sam Cook, Shane Snater, Jamie Porter, whoever it may be that's in the 11 that day. So yeah, I think T20 cricket is moving more the money ball route.
Yeah.
And the matchups and the stats and strike rates and boundary percentages, all of that is becoming, or is coming to the forefront and becoming a massive part of the T20 game.
And the way the world circus now works is not many surprises. There will be youngsters coming through, of course there will, but most of the hired hands you will know. I mean, you played in the inaugural South African T20 in the off season, and I don't suppose there were that many people you hadn't seen before. We may be seeing new faces, but for those actually on the world circus, I guess there's no real surprises coming your way.
Yeah, I think if I haven't personally seen somebody play, somebody in the team has played with him or played against him in the 100 or in the Big Bash, or so you can draw on a lot of knowledge from the different players in your squad, and then also with Mick Lewis being involved with the Melbourne Renegades, and
of course
Mags going over there this winter as well. I think also that experience that they gain from that, and the knowledge from the players, different ideas, how teams like that go about their business. It's all stuff that we're trying to sort of evolve with and adopt, try and cherry pick what works, and try and sort of move forward with the times.
For you as a captain, going out onto the field of play, you must have clear headspace, because there is so much info that you're storing that you have to call on it at a split second with whatever the last 2 balls have been, or whatever it may be. Do you find yourself preparing for a game in a different way maybe than before because of what you've learned?
Yeah, I think there's an overwhelming amount of information, and I think that's where you as a player need to sift through what the important stuff is. What do I need on the field at given times, and that's the feedback that's given to coaches, and different players prepare differently. Some guys want to see how bowlers sort of construct their overs. Bowlers want to see how batters, what are their options, where they're looking to score. So for me as a captain, I'm not going to cover every single base, otherwise you're going to be doing 36 hours of prep for each game. I think that's where the responsibility is on the players to understand how certain batters are going to play, because I'm not the type of captain who's going to be standing at mid-off telling a bowler, this is the ball, you need to bowl this ball. I think you need to give bowlers freedom to express themselves, allow them to be successful, but also allow them to fail and sort of learn from their mistakes, instead of sort of holding their hand their whole way. I don't really think that players grow as much if they're constantly being told what to do. I think you need to give them the freedom to be able to explore different options, even if it's against what you think, and then you can sit down afterwards and sort of speak to them about what they thought and their options. And I think they're only going to grow as players that way. So yeah, there's a lot of information. I as a captain need certain stuff, but I think you also need to sift through a lot of stuff that you don't need.
The way that these matches go back to back to back, momentum is obviously valuable, not imperative, as we found out in 2019. Last season, I think we won in Canterbury, and then we had last win, and it wasn't until that Middlesex Sussex double header, I think, here, wasn't it, that you got back to back victories. How important is home advantage, and how important is it to make the most of home advantage when you've got games coming thick and fast?
Yeah, I think if you look at last season, we won, I think it was 6 from 7 at home, which previously we had been quite bad at home, and relying on wins away from home. So if you're winning your home games, it's taking pressure off you when you're travelling away.
That's the bedrock then.
And teams are going to prepare wickets that suit their attack. We saw the quarter-final at Lancs last year. They had a lot of slow bowlers, used wickets, which you can't control going into knockout games, but you can certainly control that when you're playing at home. I think Stewie Kerrison has been massive for us. He's prepared really good wickets, which is exactly what we want here at Chelmsford. And with our options, if the wickets do deteriorate or play differently, we can cover those. But yeah, I think traditionally we're quite slow starters, and with this Ireland game and us starting later than everybody, it's going to be huge for us to get a bit of momentum in that first sort of 6-game block, and try and get our noses in front instead of always playing catch up. I think we're the type of team that when our backs are against the wall, we play our best cricket, but hopefully with the experience that certain players have had through the last sort of 9 months, that we can start to become a team that is winning from the start of the tournament instead of waiting for a moment mid-season to sort of kickstart us into the back end of the tournament.
Lastly, and it will be last, I promise, on a personal level, you've been playing non-stop cricket for quite a while now. You still got the appetite for this game?
Yeah, I think I've loved my time in England. And I think now, moving out of the 4-day stuff, it's a different challenge. T20 captaincy brings a different responsibility as well. So it brings like a boost of energy and sort of like an adrenaline shot for this next sort of section in the season. So I'm extremely excited. It's a format that I love playing. It's incredibly challenging, a completely different challenge to 4-day cricket. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and yeah, I've definitely got the energy regardless of how much cricket I've played.
Well, we can't wait to see you lead the Eagles to bigger and better things. Thanks for your time, Simon.
Thanks.
Is he ready?
So great to hear from Simon Harmer. They're very interesting stuff, particularly about the matchups and the way that they analyse and set things up in these Vitality Blast games. Now we're going to be hearing lots more on this Essex Eagles Vitality Blast preview show from members of the squad. But here's a chance to catch up with the man who's got his hands on the steering wheel, head coach Anthony McGrath. Anthony McGrath, thanks for joining us to set up this new white ball season. We're nearly 2 months into the red ball season. How much do you cross things over from what you've seen in April, May to set up for things in the Vitality Blast next month?
It's difficult, really. I mean, we did a lot of white ball work in Abu Dhabi in pre-season, but when you're in the red ball phase, given the challenges they have there, not a lot really. So guys not playing in the first 11 will have done a little bit more, but this week leading into our first game is crucial. So you know, the warm-up games we've got and the little bit of prep we've got are paramount really, and it's just about the guys switching, you know, focus to the shorter form.
Because we know the Eagles have had a tendency to be slow starters. And as we always know, momentum in any sport is critical, and to get some back-to-back wins would be so useful.
Yeah, I mean, we improved that last year, but certainly years before that it was something we pinpointed, and particularly our home form. But last year was very good. I think we won 5 out of 7 at home, and we managed to string some wins together. So it's that kind of tournament. You've got to peak at the right time. But of course, a good start always helps, because you know, if you do have some hiccups along the way, you've got points on the board. So every team are pretty much in the same boat.
Oh yeah.
Every stage this year, at this time of year. Sorry.
Performances of last season stick with you, particularly here. You think of, you know, Michael Pepper. You think of Paulie Walter. You know, they seem to really, I use the word take responsibility, it's probably the wrong phrase, but they certainly stood up and had major impact in the way that games went. Does that change the way that you can plan for games now, knowing that those guys have reached that level and are looking to improve upon it?
Not really, but I think what it does do is give the guys more confidence that they can do it. Obviously they've been picked up in franchise stuff, and this winter and last summer we had a lot of guys playing franchise stuff and around the world, so that is superb for us. It's just that belief, that knowing that they can do it in the biggest tournament, so it brings not just to the individual but to the group. I think the way we went about it last year was you know, really exciting. We were very fearless, particularly with the bat, breaking a record I think twice here at Chelmsford. So it's the way we want to go about it. Of course, sometimes you can fall flat on your face, particularly in T20. But Peps and Waltz, as you mentioned, they'd had a little bit of experience going into last year, but I think that was a real breakout season for them. So hopefully they can replicate that again.
And you got some Aussie sun as well during the winter. What did you learn from that? What did you garner that you can hopefully push into the Eagles this season?
Yeah, I mean, some things reinforced what we do really well, but I think in different conditions, different tournaments, teams obviously do things differently. So I was really interested to see how the guys train and also prep for matches and then post-match as well. So I think we can take stuff from that. They have a little bit more time in between games. We've got 7 in 9 days, so you've got to take that into account. But I just think the freedom probably of the guys in Melbourne, how they approached it, we can take a lot from that, and it's not too far about how we went about it last year. So it was good just to reinforce that, you know, we're on the right track, and hopefully with that year more experience that we talked about with some of our younger players, you know, we can improve on a quarter-final place that we achieved last year.
Are there any particular younger players that you're really looking forward to seeing step up and step on?
Well, I think we saw, you know, Feroz and Robin Das, Benny Allison play the odd game last year. Benny played quite a few more. Jamal had a good 50 over tournament. You know, Josh Reimel and Will Butterman have played as well before, so they've all got experience. So given the nature of the congested schedule, I'm sure we're going to, you know, need a bigger squad, and I think now they've got that experience, the 5 or 6 I mentioned there are going to play a part at some point. So you know, we're hoping that, you mentioned with Michael and Paul Walter, that someone has a breakthrough year as well to complement what we've already got.
We talk about home advantage being so invaluable in this contest. Friday nights here at the Cloud County Ground have got their own reputation, shall we say, but so important to make use of Essex voices in the stands to get momentum again to get victories under your belt as early as possible?
Definitely, and we really felt that last year when we got on a roll. You know, winning 5 out of 7, you could feel the excitement in the ground, and I think the lads really fed off that. The 2-3 years previous, we've not been great, and also we've had COVID, as you know, and it's been a bit soulless in here. But there's nothing better than Chelmsford, particularly on a Friday night when the fans are right behind us. So it's our job to get them off the seats and excite them. And if we do our part, the fans are always right behind us here. So home form again will be crucial. I think we've got a good formula here now with the balance with bat and ball and the options we've got. So again, we'd be targeting our home form as a key to going to the last stages.
We're looking forward to it. I hope you are too. And we look forward to Eagles' success once again. Thanks for your time, Meg.
Is he ready?
3 of the key characters in last season's T20 campaign were Michael Pepper, Paul Walter and Matt Critchley. I sat the 3 of them down to reflect and look forward to this season's campaign. Gents, thank you for joining us as we set up another Vitality Blast season. Before we look forward, I want to look backwards though. What are your fondest memories of the Eagles Vitality Blast campaign last year? Mike?
Probably making it to the quarterfinals. Obviously that result didn't go our way. But then just playing finals cricket with the boys we have was probably my fondest memory.
Critch?
Not too sure. There's quite a few good ones. A pretty good campaign, obviously, until quarterfinals. I think one thing that sticks out is like playing in front of the crowd and the atmosphere here. And the one game that I actually didn't play in when the boys broke the record against Glamorgan.
Yeah.
Watching that like on Sky, being up in the balcony, like watching it all happen, it was pretty good. Pretty jealous not to be out there at that point. So.
When you watch from up there, is it a real production? Because we know what Friday nights are like here. They can get fairly frisky, fairly raucous, but it is great fun.
Yeah, definitely. When you're out there, you kind of just concentrate, and then maybe if you've won the game, the last 1 or 2 overs, you kind of can soak up the atmosphere a bit. But when you are up there and you're not involved in the moment, like it is a good atmosphere.
Sit back and enjoy. Yeah. Paul, what was the highlight for you?
Yeah, I think for me it was over the 14 group games. I think it's probably the best performances we put together as a unit. Even I think better than when we won it in 2019. I think we were consistently the best we've been.
Yeah.
And especially with a fairly young team going forward, it's really pretty exciting. And obviously we're hoping to go one better this year and make it to final stage. And then when you're there, anything can happen. So I think the fondest memory would definitely just be the fact that we just put it all together for more games of the group stages than we have done previously.
We both know you're dying to say nearly hitting 6 sixes.
What was that? 4 sixes against Glamorgan, was it? You hit the most sixes for the Eagles. I think it was 24, and it was a significant season, particularly for you two. I mean, I think you hit the most runs for the Eagles. You had the best average, or vice versa. But it was, sounds silly saying it, a breakout season, a marker season perhaps better for you in particular, because you seemed to take on the responsibility and you enjoyed it. We saw that particularly with the bat.
Yeah, I think obviously played for a few years now and kind of learnt off some very good middle order players and kind of Ryan Tenniscarter and Ravi Bopara. So kind of just building that knowledge base up, and obviously it's satisfying to be able to go on the pitch and produce performances. So you can't take anything for granted. It's a new year this year, so you've got to try and replicate that and try and go one better.
Mike, for you, I mean, we saw some astounding innings. That 75 not out against Hampshire, I think that was with Mr. Critchley, wasn't it? Wasn't that when you you went 45 not out and suddenly the ball was flying everywhere and suddenly everything was hitting the middle. And you had that for a lot of the last T20 campaign. You must have been really confident.
Yeah, I was very confident. Like, good thing before the comp, it was all just go out, express yourself, enjoy your cricket. And I think that's what also made us so successful for the team and the whole, and myself also. So yeah, it was just that confidence, obviously scoring runs going into the next game. And once you're away, team's winning, confidence is high. So yeah, definitely.
And because the games come so quickly, generally, you're able to build on that or redo it depending on what the last innings has been.
100%, yeah. And you just take that momentum with you. Obviously, when then also the luck's on your side, everything, so the confidence keeps on going, and it's just how it keeps on going.
Confidence for a leg spinner is absolutely critical. Here speaks the voice of experience, but you got a couple of 3-wicket hauls early doors, 3 braces as well, and suddenly there was a different feel to the way you were bowling. Did you feel that out there?
No, I wouldn't say like that. Like, I've always bowled my overs in T20, and it's probably played as a bowler more than a batter over the years during it. So yeah, but obviously confidence is a big thing, and I think the confidence to execute your skills. Like, we all know it's quite a small ground here, so you've not got a lot of margin for error. So you almost got to be brave and know that one day it's not going to go your way. I think that obviously happened a couple of times when people got going, but yeah, I think the confidence in the diverse attack we have is like very much something that we give you that faith when you're bowling to go out and express yourself.
You took that into the 100, which you all participated in last season. Mike, I mean, yours was a late call-up. Did you enjoy it? What did you get from the experience?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Unbelievable set of boys, actually, with Foster as head coach and Tendo as batting coach. Just like the quality of players that you're training with, learning off, different experiences, different techniques, ways to go about your business was an unbelievable learning, and yeah, it was very enjoyable.
Paul, particularly with your bowling in the 100, you seemed to come through just at the right time when your team needed it. Picked up from that?
Yeah, I think obviously good confidence boost for me going into a new team and kind of performing, especially with the ball. So hopefully, yeah, transfer that back to Essex this year and put some big performances in.
And give that variety. Obviously, we've got Daniel Sams with the left armour, but to have 2 left armours, particularly his variety, the leg spinner as well. We'll talk about the Vitality Blast that's coming. The off-season, though, gave you lots of different experience. Critch, I'm going to start with you because you went with England Lions and then the Big Bash. I mean, you got no downtime. You had no off-season, did you?
Yeah, I got a couple of months pre-Christmas to do a bit of what I needed to do, and then off to Australia and then Sri Lanka, then Abu Dhabi with Essex. So it was a pretty busy time after January. But obviously, the Big Bash is something that you grow up watching as a kid, and like it was always a goal of mine to participate in. So yeah, it was nice to get that call and get out there. And it's not really a chore getting out.
I'll bet.
Being in Melbourne for a month or so. So no, it was a brilliant experience. Again, another experience you just add into the bank, and hopefully aid you to perform here. And
having the chance to play with Sean Marsh, Martin Guptill, Aaron Finch, of course, you had that big partnership with. That's invaluable learning time as well.
No, definitely. I think you watch the way that they go about it, and it's not always like trying harder that's better. It's trusting yourself and trusting that you put all the work in the past to like go out there and perform. That's the best way of going about it. So I think, like the boys said about the 100, like it's just stuff that adds to the experience and adds to you knowing what you want to do.
Paul, you had the chance to play in the inaugural IL T20 in UAE. That must have been totally different from anything else you've ever done before, wasn't it? I mean, I know you've had off-season and warm-up times out there, but that was different.
Yeah, it was brilliant experience. Again, just playing with world-class players, I think you're never going to get worse. Just experiencing these guys and how they go about it, and kind of the trust level they have in themselves, which I think is, again, kind of what Chris was touching on. I think that's the most important thing, is even when things aren't going your way, sticking to your process, knowing what you do best and sticking to that. And I think that's the best way to kind of ride out lows and highs in form and just staying consistent.
And talking of processes, you did the Abu Dhabi T10s, right? Did the process change because of the shortened form? And can you use what you learnt from the T10s into the T20s, which is a nearer extension than maybe we've seen with the Red Bull crossover?
You can, but it's obviously off time, so you have just no time, maybe 1 or 2 balls, and from then on it's basically just trying to hit every ball for 4 or 6. Which to be fair isn't that similar once you're in T20. And it's a good learning of that fact you can do from the start. There's going to be times in T20 you're going to need to do that from ball 1 or maybe ball 2 or 3. So yeah, you can do trust, it's getting this trust, but it's similar processes, just in a much shorter space of time.
More concentrated, obviously. I mean, as we set up to go into this campaign, obviously we're looking back at what happened last year, and as you've all said, you want to build, you want to take it on. What are the key learnings from last year, factors that you want to build into this year as a team, as individuals, to take the Eagles further, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's probably. I mean, we just lost one game in the quarterfinals. I think we were unlucky. Lanks turned up and played a brilliant game. I think that's probably the one thing is just when the pressure comes and somebody's got to stand up and deliver, you just want to be that guy. I think they had that guy that day and we didn't, and that is just the difference in the shorter form. So I think obviously first step is to qualify, get through the group, which is never easy, and then just in that big game, just being the guy that wins the game and gets yourself into finals, and then anything can happen.
Do you two in particular feel you have to take more responsibility this year? I mean, everybody's in their mid-20s, but on the back of what you've done last year, do you feel you have more responsibility, particularly with the bat?
I wouldn't say it's more responsibility. Definitely had responsibility last year. We've got world-class players all over the line. So I think it's just, yeah, you do have to take responsibility when it's your turn and you're in. But again, it's still that team first mentality. There's loads of world-class players around us. So again, it's more just building on last year, and hopefully we can do the same thing. But T20 cricket, you just never know. So short and fast.
And the unity, the camaraderie within the group. This is your third year, second year. You feel more part of it. I'm sure it didn't take long before you got your nicknames and everything else that was flying about. But that group feel, the strength of the group is so critical in games that come thick and fast in the Vitality Blast.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think obviously it's a very welcoming group anyway, but I think we're pretty settled side now from last year, and which can only help you. Everyone kind of knows the roles and the different roles, but also I think, like you alluded to, like pressure performing there, I actually think there's probably a little bit less. Like we've probably got 12 or 13 players that can win you a game on their own, so you only got to win 7 or 8 games to go through, and then from there, like, put a couple of performances in, as Paulie says. So I think the good thing with this group is like it's quite frightening lineup all the way down, especially the batting, like, and then the bowling. Like, it's got such variety that like it's quite an exciting group. I bet to coach, we also have their meetings, what specific role we want us to play, but I'm sure we'll just go out and entertain and win games ultimately.
Last question. The advantage of playing at home. The Cloud County ground, as we've already mentioned, has its own unique flavour, particularly on a Friday night. How much do you look forward to playing here, especially when we've got a packed out house? Mike?
Oh, so much. It's like one of the best atmospheres to play on, say, a Friday night to away there. Support the crowd and help us, but like hindering the opposition is unbelievable.
Can you hear everything that they say?
A lot of the time, but then whilst you're, say, batting or in the moment, you're focused on the task in hand, what you need to do. The times where you're cruising or your mind's not 100% on the cricket in between overs, or when you're up at the balcony, you can feel the atmosphere and hear how much they're behind you and supporting you. It's unbelievable.
Rich, how different is it from Derby?
Yeah, it's very, very different. Probably a similar size to ground, but a lot more intimidating atmosphere. I think, like memories from last year when we won that game against Hampshire in 13 or 14 overs. I remember the crowd got going there, and you almost feed off that, and then they get on the back of a couple of their players, and I wouldn't want to be on that side of it, to be honest. So, no, definitely looking forward to it.
And Paul, local lad, so you presumably recognise a few of the voices that are behind you.
Yeah, I think you still get a stick as a home player if you're not playing well. So you've always got to make
and you can't run away from it.
you can't get away from it. But I think last year we won 6 out of 7 at home, and I think the support that just kind of shows the momentum. And when we start getting on top, how under pressure the other teams can feel, especially just kind of with the atmosphere of the ground. So I think it's vitally important for us to be successful is the crowd there.
Is he ready?
Oh, outside edge and taken. It's a good catch. Gone a long way. Gone up a long way. Gone a long way. Picked up and dispatched.
As ever, the man spearheading the Essex bowling pack is Sam Cook. Here's my chance to have a chat with him ahead of what will be a very testing T20 campaign. Well, Sam, thanks for joining us to set up this new season. I mean, we're 2 months into the real season now. How big a leap psychologically is it for a bowler going from red ball into white ball?
Yeah, pretty different, to be fair. I think obviously there's times in T20 where you're always trying to get a wicket as a bowler, but there's times where you've got to probably think, how am I saving runs more than taking wickets at times? And yeah, it's a very different sort of tactical sort of game to deal with. Obviously in red ball cricket you've probably got more time to set a batsman up and to sort of get into your spell. In T20 you just don't have that time. You've got to be on it from ball one and obviously thinking on your feet very quickly. So yeah, it's a very different mindset to a red ball game, but one that I enjoy and relish nonetheless. It's one that you've seemed to have got used to over the last 3, maybe 4 years. You certainly seem to have got your technique sorted in terms of what you need to do strategically in the T20. You must feel a lot more confident now. Yeah, I think the big thing I've said for a while is there's nothing really that can prepare you for first team sort of blast cricket. It's obviously extremely intense, playing against unbelievable players day in, day out, week in, week out. And no matter how much sort of academy second team cricket you can play, it doesn't really sort of prepare you like playing in the blast does. So the more you play in the blast, the better sort of equipped you become for it, which is obviously inevitable with experience. I think you learn more about yourself as a bowler and obviously the players you're playing against. So experience is invaluable, I think, in this competition. Obviously, I think in our team we've obviously got a good blend of youth and experience. I think the likes of us who have played a bit more T20 cricket now have to draw on those experiences a lot. And you're able to call on the advice, I suppose, of people like Daniel Sams coming into the mix. What have you learnt from our Australian import? Yeah, loads. Obviously, he's played T20 cricket all around the world. Obviously, played at the IPL, Big Bash, all the sort of the big leagues, and on the international stage as well. So he's brought insight and different sort of tactics and different ideas. And I think whenever you have an overseas player come in, it's foolish of you not to try and tap into their experiences. So we've chatted a lot, obviously, about trying to swing the new ball, how we get that ball moving off the straight. That's a way in which we feel that we can have one over on the opening bats in the power play, because at times it can be a pretty one-sided affair, bowling versus bat in the power play. So yeah, obviously he brings a wealth of experience and he's a really valuable member of this team, and looking forward to having him back again this year. And the death ball, the slower ball, that you seem to have found a few different options with that. I guess when you're playing in the 100 and stuff, as you did so successfully last season, that sort of experience and practice in those scenarios is invaluable when you're taking it forward now. Usually I think you can have 100 different slower balls, But if you don't practice them enough and you don't know when to use them, I think for me that's the key. A lot of it is timing. You can have as many different skills and as many different deliveries as you want, but if you don't know when to implement them and you're not confident enough to execute that skill, the batters even are just too good now. You can't get away with it, and even at times you do execute that still, and you still get out of the park. So I think it's about being at peace with yourself as a bowler and understanding that there's times where you are going to go for boundaries and you are going to get hit, but there's ways in which you can do it, and understanding where you're more likely to pick up the wickets and make it as hard for a batter as you can. So for me, obviously the slower balls have been a big addition to my sort of weaponry, and I think for me probably the experience, as I said earlier, feeds into learning when to bowl those different balls and the timing and the sequencing of your over, and that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned sort of progressing through playing more T20 cricket and in the 100 as well.
You say being at peace with yourself. I'm sure from the bowling perspective, that mental resilience is absolutely critical, because you know it's going to happen. You're going to go for boundaries, for maximums, whatever it is, and it's therefore being able to bounce back. You've been around the Eagles setup now for a while. Chelmsford boy, of course you are. Do you see that mental resilience coming through the group now because of what you've achieved, what you haven't achieved, and an awareness of what is possible?
Definitely. I think as you say, sort of the resilience and the mental side of it, I think you only have to look at the likes of the IPL and sort of international T20 cricket. The best bowlers in the world go for 50 at times in T20 cricket. It's not making them a bad bowler, and they shouldn't ever be judged by one game where you go for a few, because I think that's one thing that we're all starting to learn now, and to understand how much the game has changed. Even when I started playing T20 cricket, what was perceived to be a good day out with the ball now, is completely different to what it is now. So
it's a changing world.
Exactly, the game is changing so quickly, and almost understanding, especially at Chelmsford, like you say, that you've got to have resilience as a bowler, because it is an extremely high scoring ground in T20 cricket, and the South Group in general. We have a lot smaller grounds than the North Group, so your sort of expectations as a bowler, you probably do get a little bit more wiggle room. But I think as a group, in terms of our resilience, I think again it boils down to that experience. We've got a group now. We've probably, since sort of 2018-19, we've gone through a bit of a transition, obviously losing sort of some more experienced players as younger guys like myself who have sort of had to come into it and learn pretty quickly. And now I feel like we saw sort of last year sort of glimpses of how talented and how good this team can be. I think it only will come from playing more cricket that we are going to start building up that resilience and sort of learning how to win more, which we did last year, and we really, I think, put some statement performances down. Like I said, how impressive this team could be, and I think like you say, Chelmsford, it sort of breeds that sort of resilience, and it's a tough place for away teams to come, and we want to make sure that that's continued this year, and it really becomes a fortress again.
And the evolution of the Eagles is continuing apace. I think there has, as you say, there has been frustration within the fans, obviously, because they want to see 2019 success again. But we are seeing and have seen glimpses of it. Now it's a matter of stitching it together, getting some momentum in this tournament, and then seeing where we go from there.
100%. I think if we're honest, in 2019 we probably weren't ready to win it as a team. I think we obviously got on a run, and like you can in this form of cricket, momentum is the key word. I think last year we certainly had that momentum. Obviously it was a shame to slip up in that one game against Lancashire, but I think what we did do is we didn't change our game plan at all. We kept playing with the same freedom, the same brand of cricket that we played all tournament that had done us so well, and I think the fans probably saw last year just how far we've come in a very short space of time as a team, and like I touched on earlier, some of those performances we put on, especially at home last year, were as good as you'll see from a T20 side. So looking around the dressing room, we've definitely got players now that can really compete and can really put us, and we know where we should be, and that's at finals day at the end of this tournament, and that's what our goal is going to be.
So there you have it. Hope you've enjoyed those interviews as we look forward to what will be a very, very interesting T20 campaign. Make sure you're with us. I know the 3 Fridays are already sold out, but the other matches do still have some tickets. Go to essexcricket.org.uk to make sure you are here with us at the Cloud County Ground. For now, bye and see you later.
Is he ready?
Oh, outside edge, and taken. It's a good catch. Gone a long way. Gone up a long way. Gone a long way. Picked up and dispatched.